The observation platform floated above the Grand Assembly Chamber like a glass bubble suspended in space. 3 young alien women pressed close to the transparent barrier, watching the scene below with wide eyes and racing hearts. They had come to witness history, though none of them understood yet just how much history they would see. "Look at them," whispered Myra, her pale blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights. She was Valorian, tall and graceful, with delicate antennae that curved backward from her forehead. The humans actually came. I thought they would run. Below them, the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were carved from asteroids pulled from a dying star system, and its ceiling displayed a live image of the galaxy itself, with every member world glowing like a tiny jewel. 247 species had sent representatives to this meeting. Their bodies ranged from massive rock creatures that weighed 10 tons to beings made entirely of light. And in the center of this impossible gathering stood 5 humans. Just 5. Nira, who sat to Myra's left, clicked her sharp teeth together nervously. She was Dracorian, covered in deep red scales that caught the light when she moved. Why would they send only 5? The council could crush them without effort. Do they want to die? The third observer said nothing. Vela was Luminari, her silver eyes capable of seeing light frequencies no other species could detect. She watched the human delegation with intense focus, her analytical mind trying to understand what she was seeing. Something about the humans troubled her, though she could not say what. The council speaker rose from its throne. The speaker was an ancient being called the Arbiter, a creature of crystal and light that had guided galactic civilization for 3,000 years. When it spoke, its voice filled every corner of the massive chamber, without echo or distortion. Humanity of Earth, you have been summoned to answer for your crimes against the natural order of the galaxy. The lead human stepped forward. He was neither tall nor particularly impressive by galactic standards. His name was David Cole, and he served as Earth's diplomatic representative. His dark skin was smooth, his hair cropped short, and his eyes moved across the assembled aliens with a calm that seemed almost foolish given the circumstances. "We are honored to appear before the council," David said. His voice should have been lost in the enormous chamber, but the translation systems carried it clearly. "Though I must admit some confusion about these charges." A ripple of anger passed through the assembly. The war chief of the Croton Empire, a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like gray stone, slammed one fist against his seat, rest hard enough to crack it. Confusion? The war chief roared. "Your species has violated 17 separate colonization protocols. You have settled worlds that should have killed you. You have developed weapons that should be impossible for creatures of your biological classification. And now you stand before us and claim confusion?" David did not flinch. He did not step back. He simply nodded once, as if the war chief had made an interesting point at a business meeting. "I see. Perhaps you could explain which specific violations concern the council most. We would like to address each accusation properly." In the observation bubble, Mira's antennae vibrated with disbelief. Is he negotiating? Right now? They could destroy his entire planet, and he is asking for clarification. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with colors that represented frustration. "Your species settled on the world you call Nova Prime. That planet has a gravity rating of 4.7 standard units. Your bodies should collapse at anything above 2. You breathe air that should poison your lungs. You drink water that should dissolve your internal organs. And yet your colony has existed for 40 years. Explain." David tilted his head slightly. "We adapted." The chamber erupted. Dozens of species began shouting at once, their translation systems creating a wall of angry noise. The Arbiter raised one glowing appendage, and silence fell instantly. "Adaptation requires time," the Arbiter said coldly. Evolution takes thousands of generations. Your species has been in space for less than 2 centuries. What you describe is not adaptation. It is deception. You are hiding something about your true nature, and the Council will discover what. And if we are simply survivors? David asked quietly. If we have nothing to hide? The Arbiter's form shifted to a deep red that signified judgment. Then you will prove it. You are hereby sentenced to the trial of worth. Your delegation will face physical, mental, and environmental challenges designed to reveal the true capabilities of a species. If you are what you claim to be, a weak and fragile race that has somehow survived through luck, you will die quickly, and your planet will be placed under protective supervision. If you are something else, something dangerous that hides behind a mask of weakness, you will reveal yourselves and face appropriate consequences. Nira grabbed Myra's arm so hard that her claws left marks. The trial of worth. Nobody survives the trial of worth. The last species that attempted it lost 300 warriors in the first hour. But Vela was still watching David Cole. She watched how he stood, how he breathed, how his eyes moved across the council with an expression she could not identify. And then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The human was smiling God. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was unmistakably there. He was facing certain death, the destruction of everything his species had built, and he was smiling as if someone had told him a private joke. We accept the trial, David said. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. But I would like to make a request. You are in no position to make requests, the war chief snarled. Perhaps not. But the Council prides itself on fairness, does it not? So I ask only this. Allow observers during our trial. Let the galaxy see what happens. Let them witness exactly what humanity is capable of. The Arbiter considered this for a long moment. You want witnesses to your destruction? I want witnesses to the truth, David replied. Whatever that truth may be. The Arbiter conferred briefly with the Council leadership through a private communication channel. When it spoke again, its tone held something that might have been curiosity. Very well. The trial will be broadcast to all member worlds. The galaxy will watch as your species reveals its true nature. David bowed his head respectfully. Thank you. That is all we ask. The chamber began to clear as preparations for the trial began. The human delegation was led away by Council security forces. Their hands bound with energy restraints that could vaporize flesh at a single command dot in the observation bubble. Mira turned to her companions with wide eyes. We should go. We should not watch this. It will be horrible. But Nira was already pulling up her personal display, searching for the best viewing positions in the trial arena. Are you insane? This is the most interesting thing that has happened since the Void Wars. I am not missing a second of it. Vila said nothing. She was still thinking about that smile on David Cole's face, about the way he had accepted death with the calm of someone who already knew how the story would end. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. And Vila intended to find out what. The trial would begin in 1 hour. The galaxy would be watching. And 5 fragile humans from a small blue planet would face challenges designed to break. Species far stronger than they had any right to be. None of the 3 observers knew it yet. But they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of strength forever. The trial arena was built inside a hollowed moon. Its interior large enough to contain entire ecosystems. The Council had designed it specifically for moments like this, when a species needed to be tested and found wanting. Giant display screens covered every surface, broadcasting the proceedings to trillions of viewers across the galaxy. Mira, Nira, and Vela had secured observation seats near the arena floor, close enough to see everything clearly. Around them, representatives from dozens of species settled into their own viewing platforms, most of them treating the event like entertainment. Food vendors moved through the crowds, selling snacks unique to various worlds. First trial begins in 2 minutes, Nira said, her red scales flushing darker with excitement. Gravitational endurance. They will increase the gravity in the testing zone until the humans collapse. Most species of their classification last about 3 minutes. Myra's antennae drooped sadly. This seems cruel. Could we not simply examine their planet and verify their claims without killing them? The Council does not trust things it cannot understand, Vala replied, her silver eyes fixed on the arena floor below. And humans are very difficult to understand. The arena floor opened, and the 5 human delegates walked out. They had been given simple gray uniforms to wear during the trials, with no tools or technology of any kind. David Cole led the group, followed by 4 others. A woman named Rachel, with hair the color of copper. A broad-shouldered man called James. A smaller woman named Leah, who wore glasses. And a young man named Thomas, who could not have been more than 20 years, old by human counting. The Arbiter's voice echoed through the arena. Trial 1. Gravitational Endurance. CE. Standard classification for human species is 1.2 standard units. We will begin at 2 units and increase by 0.5 units every 60 seconds. The trial ends when all subjects are incapacitated. The gravity generators hummed to life. On the display screens, the number 2 appeared in glowing symbols dotted first. Nothing seemed to happen. The humans stood normally, showing no signs of distress. The crowd murmured with confusion. Is something wrong with the equipment? Myra asked. No, Vila said slowly. Look at their legs. Their muscles are tensing, compensating. They feel it. They just are not showing it. The gravity increased to 2.5 units. Now the humans showed clear signs of strain. Their shoulders hunched slightly, and their breathing became more deliberate. But they remained standing. 3 units. James sank to one knee, his jaw clenched tight. But after a moment, he pushed himself back up, refusing to stay down. 3.5 units. Rachel's legs buckled, and she dropped to her knees. Blood appeared at the corner of her mouth where she had bitten her lip. But she did not cry out. She did not beg for the trial to stop. 4 units. Every human was on their knees now, their bodies shaking with effort. The display screens showed their vital signs. Hearts racing, blood pressure spiking, muscles tearing under the strain. By every medical standard the Council recognized, they should have been unconscious or dead, but they were still moving. David, Cole placed both palms flat on the arena floor and pushed. Slowly, impossibly, he began to rise. His legs trembled like leaves in a storm, and blood ran freely from his nose and ears. But inch by inch, he forced his body upward against a force that should have crushed him into paste. The crowd fell silent. 4.5 units. David was standing. His knees were bent, his back curved forward, his entire frame shaking so hard the observers could see it from their seats. But he was standing. Turn it off, someone in the crowd shouted. They have proven enough. But the Arbiter did not respond. The gravity continued to increase. 5 units. David's legs gave out completely. He collapsed face first onto the arena floor with a sound that made Mira cover her eyes. But beside him, something else was happening. Rachel had crawled to James, and James had crawled to Leah, and Leah had reached Thomas. The 4 of them were pulling themselves together, creating a single mass of humanity in the center of the arena. And then, racing against each other, supporting each other's weight, they began to rise as one. Nira's jaw dropped. They are working together. They are redistributing the gravitational load across multiple bodies. That is not supposed to be possible at this level of pressure. 5.5 units. The four humans stood together, their arms locked around each other, their legs intertwined for support. They looked like a single organism, a creature with 8 legs and 4 hearts, and it refused to fall. 6 units. The displays showed that the bone density in their legs was failing. Microscopic fractures were spreading through their skeleton. Their hearts were pumping so hard that blood vessels in their eyes had begun to rupture. Every system in their bodies was screaming for relief, and still they stood. The arbiter finally spoke. Enough. End the trial. The gravity returned to normal so quickly that all 4 humans collapsed into a heap on the arena floor. Medical teams rushed toward them, carrying equipment designed for species far more durable than humanity. But as the medics approached, something remarkable happened. David Cole, who had collapsed separately from the others, pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. His uniform was soaked with blood and sweat. His face was pale as death. But he looked directly at the observation platforms where the council leadership sat, and his voice carried clear across the silent arena. Is that the best you have? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several council members rose from their seats in outrage. The war chief of the Croton Empire looked as if he might jump down into the arena and crush David himself. But it was Vila who understood what had just happened. She leaned toward her companions, her voice barely a whisper. He is not just surviving. He is trying to make them angry. He wants them to make the next trial harder. Why? Myra asked, confused and horrified. Why would anyone want that? Because, Vela said slowly, he knows something we do not. He knows exactly how this story ends. The medical teams helped the humans off the arena floor. All 5 were injured, some seriously. The displays showed that Rachel had 3 cracked ribs and internal bleeding. James had torn muscles in both legs. Leah had fractured her left arm trying to support the others. Thomas had a concussion from the initial pressure spike. But they were alive. Against all probability, against everything the council understood about biological limitations, they were alive. The arbiter addressed the arena once more. The human delegation has survived Trial 1. The results will be analyzed. Trial 2 will begin in 4 hours to allow for medical stabilization. As the humans were carried away for treatment, Nira turned to her friends with an expression of pure amazement. They should be dead. Every calculation says they should be dead. What are these creatures? Myra was crying, though she did not seem to notice. Her tears ran down her blue cheeks like tiny rivers. They are brave. Whatever else they are brave. Vila said nothing. She was already running new calculations in her mind, trying to understand what she had witnessed. The humans had not survived through luck or hidden technology. They had survived through something else entirely, something the council had not anticipated. They had survived through will.pure, stubborn, irrational will. The kind of will that said no to death, even when death was guaranteed. The kind of will that turned fragile bodies into weapons and pain into fuel. And as Vela watched the humans disappear through the arena doors, she realized that the council had made a terrible mistake. They had designed the trial of worth to break species that relied on strength and speed and durability. But humans were not strong. They were not fast. They were not durable. They were something far more dangerous. They were determined. And determination. Vela was beginning to understand. Might just be the most powerful force in the universe. 4 hours passed like minutes. The galaxy had been watching, and now they could not look away. Viewership numbers had broken. Every record since the last Void War. Species that had never heard of Earth were suddenly obsessed with these strange soft creatures who refused to die. Myra had not moved from her observation seat. She had not eaten or drunk anything since the first trial ended. Her antennae hung limp with exhaustion, but her eyes remained fixed on the arena floor where the second trial was being prepared. "They cannot possibly survive another one," she said quietly. "Their bodies are too damaged. The medical reports say 3 of them should still be unconscious." Nira pulled up the arena displays on her personal screen. Trial 2. Environmental Adaptation. They are going to expose the humans to extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, and radiation levels. This test is designed for species with natural environmental resistance. Humans have almost none. "Then this is murder," Myra said bitterly. "Not a trial." "It has always been murder," Vela replied. Her silver eyes had not left the arena doors since the humans vanished through them. "The Council does not want to understand humanity. They want to destroy something they fear." The doors opened. All 5 humans walked out under their own power. They moved slowly, carefully, like people walking on broken glass. Their faces were pale and drawn, and bandages covered dozens of wounds from the first trial. But they were walking. David Cole was in front again. He looked worse than the others, his eyes sunken and his breathing labored. But when he reached the center of the arena, he straightened his spine and faced the observation platforms with that same calm expression. "We are ready," he said. The Arbiter's voice filled the space. Trial 2 will consist of 3 environmental phases. Phase 1, extreme cold. The arena temperature will drop to negative 100 degrees standard. Phase 2, extreme heat. Temperature will rise to positive 300 degrees standard. Phase 3, toxic atmosphere. Air composition will be altered to include compounds lethal to carbon-based life forms. Myra grabbed Nira's arm. "Negative 100? That would freeze their blood solid in seconds. And positive 300 would cook their organs," Nira replied, her voice strangely quiet. "The Council is not testing them anymore. They are trying to force them to reveal hidden abilities. They think humans have some secret defense." The temperature displays activated. The number began to drop. 0 degrees. The humans huddled closer together, their breath visible as white clouds. Negative 20 degrees. Ice began to form on their uniforms and hair. Their lips turned blue. Negative 40 degrees. The humans were shaking violently, their teeth chattering so hard the sound could be heard through the arena speakers. Rachel's injuries from the first trial reopened, blood flowing down her side and freezing against her skin. Negative 60 degrees. Thomas collapsed, his young body unable to sustain the temperature. James immediately dropped to his knees beside him, wrapping his own body around the younger man, using his mask to shield Thomas from the worst of the cold. Negative 80 degrees. Leah was talking rapidly, her voice shaking but determined. Mira could not hear what she was saying, but she could see the others responding, "No." Ding, focusing on her words rather than the cold that was killing them. "What is she doing?" Mira asked. Vila enhanced the audio on her display. Leah's voice came through, broken by shivers, but still clear. "Remember the story about the mountain climbers? They got caught in a blizzard for 3 days. No shelter, no food. They survived by telling each other stories, by reminding each other why they wanted to live. Focus on something warm. Focus on someone you love. Your body follows your mind, and your mind follows your heart." Negative 100 degrees? Every display in the arena showed the same thing. The humans should be dead. Their core body temperature had dropped to levels incompatible with cellular function. Ice crystals were forming in their blood. Their hearts were slowing to dangerous rhythms, but they were still conscious, still aware, still holding on to each other. 30 seconds passed at maximum cold, then 60 seconds, then 90. The Arbiter finally spoke. "End Phase 1. Begin Phase 2 immediately." The temperature reversed so fast that the arena walls crackled with thermal stress. The ice on the humans' bodies melted in seconds, then began to steam as the heat continued to rise. 100 degrees. The humans separated, spreading out to avoid sharing body heat. Their skin flushed red and sweat poured from their bodies. 200 degrees. Their uniforms began to smoke. David ripped off his outer layer and threw it aside, revealing burns already forming on his arms. The others followed his example, stripping down to the thin undergarments that offered no protection at all. 250 degrees. The floor itself was becoming hot enough to burn their feet. The humans began moving constantly, never standing in one place long enough for the heat to concentrate. They are distributing the thermal load, Vela observed. Her voice filled with something that might have been admiration. By staying in motion, they prevent any single point of contact from reaching lethal temperature. It is not a solution. It is a delay. But they are buying themselves time. 300 degrees. James fell first, collapsing onto the burning floor with a scream that echoed through the arena. Rachel and David grabbed him immediately, lifting him between them despite their own agony. They kept moving, dragging their fallen companion, refusing to let him lie still long enough to die. The Arbiter watched for 30 more seconds before calling an end. Cease Phase 2. Begin Phase 3. The air changed. The temperature stabilized at a survivable level, but now something far worse was happening. The atmospheric processors were pumping toxins into the arena, compounds that would destroy human respiratory systems in minutes. David looked at his team. They were all standing somehow, though James could barely support his own weight. Their bodies were covered in burns and frostbite wounds. They had nothing left. Deep breaths, David said quietly. Slow and deep. The gas is heavier than normal air. Stand as tall as you can. Keep your faces high. That will not save us, Leah replied, her voice rough from the temperature changes. No, but it will give us more time. And time is all we need. Time for what? Thomas asked. David smiled, that same mysterious smile that had haunted Vela since the trial began. Time for them to understand. The toxic gas flowed into the arena like an invisible tide. The displays showed its concentration rising, passing the threshold for irritation, then discomfort, then cellular damage. The humans began to cough. Blood appeared in their sputum. Their eyes watered and swelled. Every breath became a battle, every moment a choice between surrender and suffering. In the observation seats, Mira was sobbing openly. Even Nira's tough exterior had cracked, her red scales pale with distress. Only Vala remained composed, though her silver eyes shone with unshed tears. Why are they doing this? Mira wept. Why do they not just give up? The council would show mercy if they admitted defeat. Because they are not fighting for themselves, Vila said softly. They are fighting for their world. For the billions of humans who will never see this arena, who will never know what their representatives endured to protect them. They cannot surrender, because surrender means slavery for everyone they love. The toxic concentration reached lethal levels. The humans should have been dead within seconds, but they were still standing, still breathing, still refusing to fall. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The Arbiter ended the trial with a voice that carried something new, something the crystalline being had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty? Trial 2 is complete. The human delegation has survived. As medical teams rushed to help the collapsed humans, David Cole managed one final act before unconsciousness claimed him. He raised his head toward the observation platforms, toward the assembled might of the Galactic Council, and he spoke words that would echo through history. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. Now you know. We do not give up. We do not surrender. And we never stop fighting for what matters. Then he collapsed, and the arena fell into stunned silence. In her observation seat, Mira felt something change inside her heart. She had come to witness the destruction of a species. Instead, she had witnessed the birth of a legend. The recovery period lasted 12 hours. 12 hours during which the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the humans would survive their injuries long enough to face the final trial. Mira had finally eaten something, though the food tasted like ashes in her mouth. She sat with her friends in the observation area, watching the medical feeds that showed the human delegation receiving treatment. Their recovery rate is remarkable, Vila said, studying the data on her screen. Their bodies are healing damage that should take weeks in a matter of hours. Not through regeneration, nothing biological. They are simply refusing to stay broken. Nira shook her head in disbelief. The council physicians are confused. They keep running tests, looking for hidden genetic modifications or nanotechnology. They cannot accept that humans are simply this resilient naturally. Because it should not be possible, Mira said quietly. Their bodies are so fragile. Their lives so short. How can something so temporary be so strong? The arena doors opened, and the crowd fell silent. All 5 humans walked out again. They looked like ghosts, pale and thin and covered in healing wounds. Rachel was limping badly. James had his arm in a sling. Leah's glasses had been replaced, cracked during the second trial. Thomas moved like someone twice his age, every step careful and measured. But David Cole walked with his head high, his eyes clear, his expression calm. The Arbiter's voice thundered through the space. Trial 3. Combat Evaluation. The human delegation will face a champion selected from the Council's warrior castes. The trial ends when one side can no longer continue. A door on the opposite side of the arena opened, and the champion stepped out. Mira gasped. Nira swore in her native tongue. Even Vela's composed expression cracked with shock. The champion was a Croton. Not just any Croton, but a Warborn, a member of the elite warrior class that had conquered 18 star systems. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, with 4 massive arms covered in armored scales. His eyes glowed with a predatory intelligence, and when he smiled, his teeth were like rows of daggers. "This is not a trial," Nira hissed. "This is an execution." A single Warborn could destroy an army of humans without effort. The Croton champion stepped into the arena, each footfall sending tremors through the floor. His name was displayed on the screens. Groth, Victor of the Burning Moons, Slayer of the Void Fleet, Champion of the Croton Empire. He stopped 20 feet from the human delegation and looked down at them with what could only be described as pity. "Little creatures," Groth rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "I have killed species larger than you by accident. This brings me no honor. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." David looked up at the massive alien. He was so small by comparison, so obviously outmatched that the scene would have been comical if it were not so tragic. "We appreciate the offer," David said politely, "but we must decline." Groth's 4 fists clenched. "Then you choose to suffer." "We choose to fight," David corrected. "There is a difference." The trial began. Groth moved with terrifying speed for something so large. His upper right arm swept down toward David like a falling tree. Powerful enough to crush stone, David was not there. The human had moved at the last possible moment, sliding beneath the blow with a grace that seemed impossible given his injuries. He rolled, came up running, and was already 3 meters away before Groth could turn. "Scatter!" David shouted. The humans spread across the arena in 5 different directions. Groth roared with frustration, unsure which target to pursue. He chose Rachel, sprinting toward her with earth-shaking steps. But James appeared from his blind side, throwing something at the Croton's face. It was just a piece of his bandage, worthless as a weapon, but it distracted Groth for a crucial second. Rachel used that second to change direction, and suddenly Groth was chasing nothing. The pattern continued. Every time Groth focused on one human, another would distract him. They threw debris, shouted insults, even kicked dust toward his eyes. None of it caused any damage. None of it needed to. They are not trying to hurt him, Vila realized, leaning forward in her seat. They are tiring him out. They are using his size against him, making him waste energy on attacks that never land. The crowd had grown silent, watching the impossible dance below. Groth was breathing heavily now, his movements slower and less precise. He had been fighting for nearly 30 minutes without landing a single blow. And even a warborn had limits, but so did humans. Thomas stumbled, his injured leg giving out at the wrong moment. Groth saw the opening and lunged. Two of his arms reaching for the fallen human god David, threw himself into the gap. There was no time for finesse, no elegant dodge or clever maneuver. David simply put his body between Groth and Thomas, taking the full force of a blow that would have killed any human instantly. The sound was horrible. David flew backward, crashed into the arena wall, and did not move. No. Mira screamed, her hands pressed against the observation barrier, but the impact had cost Groth precious seconds. Rachel and James grabbed Thomas and pulled him to safety, while Leah circled behind the Croton champion. Looking for any weakness, any opportunity, Groth turned toward David's crumpled form, prepared to finish what he had started. But he found Rachel standing over David's body, her arms spread wide, her expression fierce despite her terror. "You want him?" she said quietly. "Come get him." Groth hesitated. There was something in her eyes, something he had never seen in any prey before. Not defiance, not courage. Something deeper. Love. She loved the man behind her. She would die for him without hesitation, without regret. And in that moment, Groth understood something that changed everything. These creatures were not weak. They had simply learned to measure strength differently than other species. For humans, strength was not about muscle or armor or speed. Strength was about what you were willing to sacrifice for the people you loved. And by that measure, humans might be the strongest species in the galaxy. Behind Rachel, David stirred. He coughed blood, pushed himself up on shaking arms, and slowly rose to his feet. His ribs were clearly broken. His left arm hung useless at his side. Blood covered half his face from a wound on his scalp. But he was standing. "Thank you, Rachel," he said softly. "I have got it from here." He stepped past her, placing himself between his team and the Croton champion. His working hand curled into a fist. "You should stay down," Groth said, and for the first time there was something like respect in his voice. "I should do a lot of things," David agreed. "But my people are watching. Earth is watching. And I refuse to let them see me quit." He raised his fist. It was such a small thing, human flesh against Croton armor. It should have been laughable. But Groth did not laugh. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone in the arena, everyone watching across the galaxy, everyone who had ever witnessed a Croton in combat. He lowered his arms. "I yield," Groth said. The arena erupted in chaos. The war chief of the Croton Empire was screaming for blood. Council members were demanding explanations. But Groth simply stood still, looking at David with an expression of profound understanding. "Why?" David asked. "Because you have already won," Groth replied. "You have won the moment you refused to surrender. You have won every time you stood back up. You have won every time you chose to fight when running would have been easier. I could kill you. I could kill all of you. But I would not defeat you. Your spirit is unbreakable. And a true warrior does not destroy something so rare." He turned to face the council observation platform. "These humans have passed the trial of worth. I will testify to it. Any who disagree may face me in single combat. Nobody disagreed. David swayed on his feet, exhaustion finally claiming him. But before he collapsed, he looked up at the observation platforms where 3 young alien women sat watching with tears on their faces. He smiled. Then he fell, and his team rushed to catch him. The Grand Assembly chamber looked different now. The same crystalline walls, the same living ceiling displaying the galaxy's countless worlds, the same representatives from 247 species. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Myra stood with her friends near the front of the observation platform, closer than any non-council member had ever been allowed during formal proceedings. The rules had been relaxed, the arbiter said, because what was about to happen deserved witnesses of every kind. Below them, the 5 humans stood together in the center of the chamber. They were still bandaged, still bruised, still bearing the marks of their impossible ordeal. But they stood tall, and they stood together, and somehow that made them look stronger than any species in the room. The arbiter's crystalline form glowed with colors that none of the observers could interpret. When it spoke, its voice carried a weight that made the very air feel heavier. The human delegation has completed the trial of worth. Against all probability, against all expectation, they have survived challenges designed to break species far more powerful than their biological classification would suggest. This council must now render judgment. The war chief of the Croton Empire rose from his seat. His massive form trembled with barely contained emotion, though whether it was anger or something else was impossible to tell. "I demand the right to speak," he growled. The arbiter's colors shifted in acknowledgement. "Speak, war chief." The Croton looked down at the humans, his eyes lingering on David Cole. "I have led armies across 17 worlds. I have crushed rebellions and conquered empires. I have seen strength in all its forms, and I thought I understood what it meant to be powerful." He paused, his 4 fists clenching and unclenching. I was wrong. The chamber fell absolutely silent. These humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no regeneration. Their lives are brief candles that burn and vanish before most species finish their childhood. By every measure the Council uses, they are among the weakest beings in the galaxy. He looked directly at David, and something remarkable happened. The war chief of the Croton Empire, conqueror of worlds, bowed his massive head. And yet they have more strength than I have ever witnessed. Not strength of body, but strength of spirit. Strength of will. Strength of love for their world and their people. I withdraw my accusations against humanity. I will personally advocate for their full membership in the Council. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The Croton were famous for their pride, for never admitting weakness or defeat. This admission was unprecedented, but they were not alone. One by one, other representatives rose to speak. "The Valorian Collective withdraws its objections," announced a tall blue figure that could have been Myra's grandmother. "We have seen enough." "The Luminari acknowledge human worth," said a silver-eyed delegate. "Their survival suggests qualities we did not anticipate." "The Dracorian Empire supports full recognition," added a red-scaled warrior. "These creatures have earned their place." More voices joined the chorus. Species that had voted for humanity's destruction now called for their acceptance. Species that had mocked their weakness now praised their determination. Species that had never heard of Earth now wanted to learn more about the strange creatures who refused to surrender. The arbiter waited until the chamber settled. Then its voice rang out with the force of law. By overwhelming consensus, this council recognizes the species known as humanity as worthy members of galactic civilization. Earth will be granted full sovereignty and representation. The colonization violations are hereby dismissed as misunderstandings arising from humanity's lack of prior contact with Council protocols. David Cole stepped forward. and the chamber fell silent again. "Thank you," he said simply. "Not just for this recognition, but for the trial itself." The Arbiter's colors swirled with confusion. "You thank us for attempting to destroy you?" "I thank you for giving us the chance to prove what we are." David looked around the massive chamber, meeting the eyes of as many species as he could. Humanity has always been underestimated. Our own history is filled with moments when stronger forces assumed we would break, and we proved them wrong. This trial was no different. He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We are not strong like the Croton. We are not wise like the Luminari. We are not graceful like the Valorians, or fierce like the Dracorians. But we have something that none of you expected. We have each other. We have the will to stand up after we fall. We have the love that makes sacrifice possible, and the determination that makes the impossible achievable." He gestured to his team, to Rachel with her cracked ribs and James with his broken arm, and Leah with her damaged glasses, and Thomas with his injured leg. None of us could have survived alone. But together, supporting each other, believing in each other, we accomplished what you thought was impossible. That is humanity's greatest strength. Not our bodies, not our technology, not any single trait. Our greatest strength is our refusal to abandon each other. In the observation platform, Myra felt tears running down her blue cheeks. Beside her, Nira's scales had flushed a deep crimson of emotion, and even Vela's silver eyes were bright with unshed tears. "We did not understand," Mira whispered. "We thought strength meant power. We thought worth meant ability. We never imagined it could mean this." "Love," Vela said softly. "Sacrifice. Determination. These are things we all feel, all species, all beings. But humans have made them into weapons. They have built civilizations on foundations that we dismissed as weakness." Nira nodded slowly. "Perhaps we are the ones who should be learning from them." Below, the Arbiter was speaking again. "Human David Cole, as a newly recognized member species, humanity is entitled to request one boon from the Council. What would you ask of us?" David did not hesitate. "I ask that you share this trial with every world in the galaxy. Let them see what happened here. Let them see how easy it is to underestimate something you do not understand. And let them remember that strength comes in many forms, not just the ones we expect." The Arbiter considered this for a long moment. "A wise request. It will be done." The formal proceedings ended, but the true work was just beginning. Delegates from dozens of species approached the human team, offering congratulations, asking questions, proposing trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The 5 exhausted humans found themselves at the center of a galaxy, suddenly desperate to know them. But as the crowds pressed in, David looked up toward the observation platform. His eyes found Mira and her friends, and he smiled that same mysterious smile that had haunted them since the trial began. Mira raised her hand in a small wave. David nodded in acknowledgement, and turned back to the growing crowd of aliens eager to meet the species that had conquered death through sheer determination. "Come on," Nira said, tugging at Myra's arm. "Let us go down there. I want to meet them properly." But Myra hesitated, looking at her friends with new understanding in her eyes. "We came here to watch a spectacle," she said slowly. "We expected to see weakness crushed by power, just like always. Instead, we saw something we never imagined. We saw what real strength looks like." Vela nodded, her silver eyes thoughtful. "We saw creatures who should have died choose to live. Creatures who should have surrendered choose to fight. Creatures who should have been alone choose to stand together. We saw humans," Nira finished simply. "And now we know why the Council was afraid of them." Together, the 3 young aliens descended from the observation platform to introduce themselves to the species that had taught the galaxy a new definition of strength. Behind them, the display ceiling showed Earth for the first time. A small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star dot. It did not look like much. It did not look like the home of warriors or conquerors. But somewhere on that tiny planet, billions of beings lived who shared the same impossible spirit as the 5 survivors below. Billions of beings who would stand up when they fell, fight when they could not win, and love each other fiercely enough to shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The humans had proven their worth. But more than that, they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten in all its ages of expansion and conflict. True strength was never about what you could destroy. It was about what you refused to let be destroyed. And by that measure, humanity might just be the strongest species the universe had ever seen. The end.